I am Nick from WortWort Productions, and in this video, I will be reviewing the new hit show, Heated Rivalry. If you've been anywhere on the internet, you have probably heard of this little 6-episode dick-filled romance. Despite its tendency to feel like porn for most of its run, this show does fantastic work in depicting two repressed men learning emotional intelligence and conquering their repression by falling in love. In it, we have two hockey players, Ilya Rozanov, portrayed by Connor Story, and Shane Hollander, played by Hudson Williams. They are two massive prospect hockey players poised to dominate the fictitious MLH for years to come. The first episode does a great job laying the groundwork for this burgeoning, complicated, yet passionate relationship. After Ilya and Shane exchange pleasantries, there's a scene in which the two seemingly compete with each other on stationary bikes before sitting down, and this scene is incredible. So much is communicated without any words spoken between the cinematography as well as the wonderful body language displayed by Connor and Hudson. You can read through Shane's eyes how everything is clicking, how years of confusion and learning are finally making sense. And as a queer man, I can relate. I definitely had a similar moment when I was young, but unfortunately for me, I was not getting my bajimba sucked 20 minutes. As you know, the guy that convinced me I was bi was an alt-right boy who just loved his Jordan Peterson. But as they say, beggars can't be choosers. Despite this scene illustrates wonderfully everything Shane is feeling in terms of realizing his own desires. After this, the show kind of turns into whenever each player is in Boston or Montreal, where their respective teams are stationed, they meet and hook up. It gets a little repetitive, but you can tell things are definitely moving in some sort of direction. Despite our modern world being more accepting of LGBT relationships, the same does not apply to public figures. And this show does a great job in illustrating how these characters have to hide and sneak to stay away from the peeping eyes of the press. Everything feels so calculated, and at the slightest moment when things feel too public, they shy away. Even things as too many windows in a penthouse apartment hundreds of feet off the ground scare our characters, which shows the layers of repression they feel they need to hide in. The third episode is definitely a marked shift away from the previous two episodes, as we are now focusing on a different hockey player and his own gay relationship. The third episode focuses on Scott Hunter, who is a different star player in the MLH, as he falls in love with a smoothie barista named Kip. Okay, I gotta say, it's funny how Scott falls in love with Kip, because the smoothie he gives him straight up looks like purple diarrhea. Like, come on, bro. That's the wateriest smoothie I've ever seen. Put some ice in it. For the love of God, put some ice in it. Also, I get that hockey players are ripped and look like Olympians, but why is Smoothie Boy here also jacked? Like, come on, he makes smoothies. He doesn't need an 8-pack. I don't think making smoothie requires a bench press PR of over 225 pounds. I'm not complaining at the end of the day, though. Anyway, despite that, this is probably my favorite episode of the show. Personally, I don't love hookup culture, so a romantic, domestic relationship will always feel better to me than the shady hookups of Hollander and Rozanov. This episode as well more directly dives in to how not being able to be in a Republican relationship eats away at everything in a relationship. This episode ending with Kip celebrating going to grad school and Scott sitting outside and watching hits so hard and is so heartbreaking, because admitting that he is gay to the entire world would make anyone scurry and hide. The next episode introduces a foil into Shane and Ilya's relationships, and that is Rose, portrayed by Sophie Nélisse of Yellow Jackets fame. Rose is an actress that stumbles upon Shane at a bar, and they begin a very public relationship. Obviously, Ilya is jealous, but suppresses that feeling like he does everything else. I feel like there was a missed opportunity here. I would have loved a scene where Ilya's anger and jealousy gets the best of him and he does something stupid. Because even though Ilya feels betrayed by Shane being with Rose, after Shane and Rose break up, things basically go back to normal between the two. I will say, there was a very good scene of Shane admitting he is fully gay to Ilya, but I would have loved a good old hockey fight. While Shane is living under the glitz and glamour of Rose's world, it would have hit so hard if at a game in which the two are playing, Ilya beats the piss out of Shane. It would have done so much to add layers of Ilya's struggle with suppressing his emotions and eventually in the moment letting the dam break. There is a scene in which Shane gets injured and Ilya is concerned, but if Ilya inflicted that injury upon Shane, it would have been an emotional gut punch to the viewer. Ilya is trying so hard throughout most of the show to convince himself he is not in love with Shane. And love is such a powerful emotion, combined with the betrayal of Shane being with Rose instead of him. I feel like there's only one way for that rage to come out. To add on to my point, we are led to believe that Shane and Ilya hate each other to the public and love each other under the sheets. But there isn't much to make the former believable, besides Shane calling Ilya an asshole from time to time. A scene in which Ilya can display his rage towards the betrayal he feels of Shane would have added so many good layers to the story. And who doesn't love a good hockey fight? The next episode is definitely a turning point, where Shane and Ilya start to feel more like a relationship. Something I haven't brought up yet is Ilya's complicated family. The Rosanovs, in one word, are just assholes. They use Ilya's earnings to fund lifestyles above their means and only give a fuck you in return. Ilya does everything for them, and they are just dicks to them. In the 5th episode, his father dies, and Ilya's family is at their breaking point, where Shane and Ilya are talking on the phone. This is far away the best scene in the entire show. Ilya, because of a myriad of reasons. Maybe the emotional stress of everything, maybe a preconceived toxic masculinity that admitting to feelings is weak, or anything else, does not feel like he can convey his emotions to Shane. And that's when Shane says, "Tell me in Russian." In a heartbreaking monologue, Ilya pours his heart out to Shane, finally admitting he loves him and admitting how much everything around him hurts. I have to commend these writers, as despite this scene being fucking devastating, it is incredibly clever writing. It communicates still the layers of emotional suppression Ilya feels, the weight of having to be the strong one while everyone around him is falling apart. Also still feeling that admitting his love is a sign of weakness. All of it is endlessly tragic and agonizing to watch. I will admit I started crying when watching this because all I wanted Ilya to do was just let Shane comfort him and support him in this trying time. In the next episode, when Shane admits to knowing what "I love you" means in Russian, it is a perfect full circle moment for this moving and touching scene. In the next episode, Shane has this cottage he goes to every summer to decompress from the season. Seeing how much Ilya is struggling being in Russia, he invites Ilya to the cottage for the summer, and he is hesitant at first, but after seeing Scott being brave enough to come out to the world, he finds it in himself to be brave enough to spend a few weeks with Shane. This episode does a really good job adding some lightness to the story, giving these two much-needed brevity. It is also incredibly cute and needed watching these two be a couple and be so domesticated. It feels like they have finally hit the point of acceptance of who they are and emotional maturity to just be honest with each other. Finally, when it does feel like things are finally going these two characters' way, Shane's dad walks in on them. This then results in Shane and Ilya having to come out to Shane's parents and admit to their relationship. Despite Shane's parents being very supportive, it is still hard for Shane himself to break out of his shell, but finally having Ilya admit to being his boyfriend was the cherry on top for this whole show. Very much needed for these protagonists. Despite how much I like this show, I do have some misgivings. I already brought up my critique of how Ilya and Shane's rivalry on the ice was lacking, and I wish overall there was just more hockey scenes. I get budgets are tight though. I will say, I also feel it's a part of the portrayal of the character, but Shane does feel a little wooden and dry for most of the show. I understand how awkward and uncomfortable it is to be in these sexual situations with Ilya at first, but I feel like over the course of the show, Shane should have had a little more personality towards Ilya, and when Ilya calls him out for being boring, it does kind of feel justified. I like this show so much more than I thought I was going to. In an age where it seems like many men take pride in their ability to emotionally suppress in their own toxic masculinity, Heated Rivalry seeks to punch through that bullshit and create two men coming to grips with being in love with each other and the emotional intelligence that is learned along the way. There's a reason why women love this show, because watching two men learn how to be emotionally vulnerable with each other it's hot. Look, I know there's a lot of gay sex scenes in this show. So many gay sex scenes. But I feel like many straight men can take a lot from this show in terms of how to achieve positive masculinity, which is becoming rarer and rarer nowadays. Overall, I'm going to give Heated Rivalry an A-. Would definitely recommend to anyone. I typically don't like romances, but this punched above my expectations. Anyways, this is Nick from WortWort Productions. I'll see you next time.